crazy ending to the game. You know, it was back and forth like the entire series, and you think it's going to go to overtime. I think Philly tied it, and then the Raptors got the ball, and there was like, I don't know how many seconds, maybe 4 or 5 seconds left on the clock when they inbounded the ball. You're thinking it's going to go to overtime, but you're just hoping for a miracle, I guess. And they get the miracle. I kind of got the dates a little bit messed up to start. I thought that the anniversary was Sunday because I was looking at my Snapchat stories, right? And, you know, on that day that they won the championship, it was pretty late in the evening when I posted the stories onto Snapchat. And when I looked at my memories, they all said June 14th. So I thought that it was Sunday coming up, right? Not Saturday. But then I realized that all of the stories that I uploaded were past midnight.
Oh, yeah.
They're past midnight. So they did actually play the game on the 13th, but all of my stories were uploaded on the 14th. So kind of rushing this episode a little bit. We're filming this on Friday night, 8 p.m., and got to get this up tomorrow. So it should be interesting. But no, we got this. I'll be able to edit tonight, hopefully, get this thing up by sometime in the afternoon tomorrow. Yeah, you know, sleep schedule is pretty messed up these days, so I don't really need to sleep. And I'll be good to go.
Well, there you go.
Exactly. Anyways, welcome back to Unlimited, episode number 3. Got some guests, Rayan, Yussef, Tyler Moore from Huntsville and from Oakville, Ontario. How are you guys doing today? How have you guys been throughout this quarantine?
I'll go first, I guess. I mean, I haven't really had much to do during quarantine, but just been trying to keep busy. A lot of PlayStation. Trying to get outside a little bit, just hanging out. Weather's getting a bit better, but honestly, not too much on my end. So, just hanging out.
Nice. Tyler, what do you got going on?
Oh, I've been working a bit. I started working beginning of May and been working since then, full time, which is nice, going into an office, just a couple other people. So it's nice to stay busy during the day. And then besides that, trying to get outside a bit. I've gone golfing a couple times, and yeah, just got my Xbox working again, and I've been playing that a bit, and yeah.
You guys see the new PS5 that came out? Speaking of video games.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of the memes on Instagram about it.
It's definitely an interesting look to it. I still got that Xbox 360, Tyler, Rayan.
Oh, man.
Grinding out some NHL 15 when I get the chance.
You gotta upgrade.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
I
don't really need the console.
You guys bought me for my birthday.
Oh yeah.
Grade 9, I think that was.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember it because like we slept over that night too, right? And
yeah,
I think me and I think it was Arib. We got up super early and we were like playing some like NHL. I don't know what it was, but we were like creating some new player. It was 15. Yeah, that was fun. Fun times.
Yeah.
Speaking of fun times, what this episode is about, kind of teased it a little bit at the top. The Toronto Raptors, they are approaching their 1-year championship anniversary. By the time this is up, it will be that day. So we are celebrating their 1-year championship anniversary on this episode, looking back at what was a terrific, monumental season that they had. So when I was like doing my notes for this, like it's just really cool to look back at some of the moments that were so special for this team and this country, and you know, some small moments that happened that became big moments in the end, like the Kawhi laugh that happened way back at the opening press conference when they introduced him as a Toronto Raptor. It all comes back in the end at the parade. Small things like this that made their championship season that much more special. So I made a lot of notes here. I made a little bit of a timeline of what we can go through. Let's start way back. Let's start before the season actually started. Throughout the Raptors' history, you know, they didn't have too much playoff success up until, you know, this past season. I guess you could say a couple of berths in the Eastern Conference Finals, but not much else. Let's start at the trade. I think that was probably the biggest sign that the Raptors are really trying to push for that NBA championship. Everybody knows what we're talking about, the Kawhi Leonard trade that unfortunately, or I don't know, it sent DeMar DeRozan to the San Antonio Spurs. I guess just off the top, what was going through your minds? Where were you guys, first of all, when this trade went down, and what were your first thoughts and reaction to it? Let's go with Rayan. I'll say you can speak. Rayan can go first.
Kind of new at the whole podcast thing, but I remember I was at home, saw the news on Instagram, and I mean, my first reaction was I was actually kind of disappointed, you know, because I like DeRozan. You know, I've been watching Raptors basketball for, you know, like good 5 years, I would say. And he was there that whole time. He was probably our best player. He took us obviously to the Eastern Conference Final that 1 year. But, I mean, just the fact that it would be a 1-year rental for Kawhi and giving up a guy like DeRozan, I was pretty hurt, you know, because I didn't think at all we would win. So the fact that happened, yeah, I don't know. I wasn't pleased with it at first, but I guess it worked out.
Tyler?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even really remember where I was. I was probably at home, but I remember seeing the news, and I mean, obviously, I was a bit disappointed seeing DeRozan go because he was the biggest part of the Raptors. I mean, for me, it's debatable whether him or Lowry was our best player. I would say maybe DeRozan was our best player, but Lowry was probably our most valuable player during the last couple of years. So it was sad to see him go, and being even a basketball fan and knowing I like to think quite a bit about the NBA, I feel like Kawhi Leonard was probably one of the most underrated, under the radar stars just because he's such a low-key guy. And then San Antonio's not the biggest market, so I honestly didn't know that much about him. I'd seen when he won the MVP the year the Spurs won, and I thought, hey, he must be pretty good, but I didn't know that much about him. I knew he was a good player, but I didn't know how good and just how much of a difference he was going to make. But I thought it was a deal that needed to happen. I don't think DeRozan and Lowry, as good as they were together, were good enough to take us to the next level. I think DeRozan just kind of showed a few times that he might not be the most clutch person. You want to put the ball in his hands at the end of a clutch postseason game. So I think it was a necessary move to get someone in who can play better defense and rise up in those clutch moments for us.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that Kawhi wasn't necessarily, one of the top players in the league, I guess, by like in terms of like a fan's perspective. Like when you think of the best players in the NBA, you would think LeBron James, Steph Curry, right? Kevin Durant. But Kawhi was definitely a very underrated player. I'll go back to Tyler on this question. Do you think that might just be because he was playing in San Antonio with guys like Parker and what's that guy's name?
Tim
Duncan. Yeah, Tim Duncan. Guys like that. Do you think he kind of flew under the radar a little bit there? Because when he came to Toronto, like that's when people were like, okay, this guy's a top 5 player in the league, hands down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, his injury definitely played a big part of that, him sitting out most of the season before. I think a lot of people probably forgot just how impactful he was, and I think a lot of people were worried at the injury just becoming a nagging thing for him for the rest of his career. So I mean, when I heard about it, I also thought about an attitude problem, maybe like he didn't want to play for the Spurs, so who knows what he's going to do for us. But yeah, I think playing with a guy like Tim Duncan, who's a first ballot Hall of Famer, and Tony Parker, who arguably might be a first ballot Hall of Famer too. You can kind of get put under the radar, especially when you're a younger guy. But I think him winning the MVP that season, they beat the Heat and LeBron and Wade and Bosh, the big three. I think that kind of showed everyone who he is as a player, and I think a lot of people just forgot that with all the injuries that have happened since then to him.
Obviously, in that 2018 offseason, there were a lot of changes that went on for the Raptors organization, especially, coming off of back-to-back playoff appearances where they both times they get swept by the Cleveland Cavaliers and LeBron James. A big move was obviously James going to the Lakers in the offseason. But yet the Raptors still, they thought that they needed to go out and get a guy like in Kawhi. They also made another move at a coach. They switched their coaches. They promoted Nick Nurse and they fired Dwane Casey. Why do you think this move was important for Masai Ujiri to make? And also, I guess, like I said, coming off of that second round loss to Cleveland, where they got swept, did you guys suspect a lot of change coming for the Raptors? Let's go Rayan first.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was pretty tough watching those back-to-back sweeps by LeBron, and then obviously getting the name LeBronto was just pretty annoying. It made us seem like we were just a small organization, and we really did need to make a change. And I respect Masai for accepting that and going out and doing it. I think a coaching change was definitely super important and was needed, obviously, because for me, my problem with Casey was that he was kind of stubborn. When something wasn't working, he just stuck with it, and there wasn't a lot of creativity in the offense. Especially, it was just kind of give the ball to DeRozan in isolation and let him do his thing, and then he would miss a lot of the time. So I respect the decision for going out and bringing in new players and seeing promoting Nurse. I think that was a great decision. Obviously, it worked out well because Nurse he's a great coach. He's a great basketball mind, and when we were down in different series, he knew how to adjust and swing the series into our favor. So yeah, I mean, that was definitely a necessary decision.
Tyler, what were your thoughts on the coaching change?
Yeah, I can't remember. Was that before or after we got Kawhi in? I can't remember.
I think the coaching change happened before.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then the trade happened.
Yeah, I mean, I'd remembered Nurse. Like, obviously, he was an assistant there for a while, and he would do a lot of those halftime talks with the reporter on TSN there. And he seemed to be the only recurring assistant coach on that talk, the only consistent guy. So, I mean, we got to see a lot of them, I guess. And I don't know. I guess I didn't really have that many expectations for him. Just being an assistant coach, you don't really know what you're getting. You don't really know what his impact is in that dressing room until he becomes the head coach. But I mean, ever since he's been in, all I've heard from quotes of players and interviews that I've seen is just how unpredictable Toronto is on offense and defense these days. Players are saying, like, it seems like they all communicate telepathically and they know where to be and what's going on, and they're constantly adapting and changing rotations and things.
What were the two most popular words or the most popular term that you guys heard throughout the Raptors season?
We're talking about last season?
Last season, yeah.
I'm going to go with load and management.
Load management. That is right. That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was obviously a very controversial thing with the Raptors involving Kawhi Leonard. He ended up playing 60 games out of 82, which is still a lot. And, the Raptors really had to be careful with Kawhi because he did have, the injury problems in the past, and they wanted to make sure that he was healthy enough to go on a long playoff run and stay healthy as much as possible. So yeah, it was definitely very controversial throughout the season, and everyone was wondering if Kawhi's going to play this game. Is he not? Is he going to sit out? Do I buy tickets for this game if Kawhi's not going to play? What's your take on load management? Is this something that other teams should start looking at doing with their star players? Let's go, Tyler.
I mean, it's like you said, it's definitely controversial. I think if your player does have an injury history or is coming off an injury, I think it's important, especially the NBA. It can be such a grind, like games every other night, 82 games plus playoffs is a lot of wear and tear on your knees and your legs. So I think especially if a guy has knee, hip, any kind of leg problems, it's important to give them some rest. The fans might not like it, but I mean, if you want to see your team win, sometimes when you're playing against the Suns on a Tuesday night, you have to rest your best player when you're probably going to win the game regardless. And I think what was the Raptors' record without him? I think wasn't it something crazy, like a really high winning percentage, better than their
17-5.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess it gave us a preview of what this season was going to potentially look like, because I think a lot of us kind of knew from the start it was a long shot for Kawhi to stay. So I guess it gave us 22 games to see what it was going to be like without him, and we looked pretty good. So, I mean, yeah, it was controversial, but I think the end result being what it was, I don't think you can look back on it and be too upset by it.
Rayan, do you have any thoughts on load management?
Yeah, like Tyler said, sometimes there's some games, you're probably going to win even without your best player. Doesn't really seem like a good idea to put them out there, even if, the possibility they could get injured. But, I mean, from an NBA fan's perspective, I don't like it at all because, every time I watch, I want to make sure I'm watching, the best players, that the stars of the league that, we all love. And I think also the NBA obviously doesn't like it either. And I think they were trying to implement some way to make the team stop doing it, but I don't really know if that ended up working out. But I think it's going to be a problem next year because I'm thinking there's going to be like a condensed season and a lot of back-to-backs. And obviously, if you want to have like the best playoffs, you need your stars to be rested. Obviously, it worked out for Toronto because Kawhi was rested and he was able to carry us in a lot of those, tough areas in the playoffs. So I don't know. I'm not a fan of it personally, but I feel like it's going to be sticking around.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that. I think it's something that a lot of teams will start to look at. Like Tyler said, there are those really bad teams that you really just don't need to play your star players against, and make sure that they're rested and take a couple of days off to recover their bodies. But yeah, it is going to be interesting what they do next season and even this season, because they will be playing. They might be playing even like back-to-back games in the playoffs this year. If they have to, the official schedule hasn't been released yet for the playoffs, how that's going to work. So we'll wait and see on that. But yeah, going back to the Raptors, despite not having Kawhi for that full season because of load management, they were still able to perform, to a really high level. They finished the season 58-24, which was good enough for second in the Eastern Conference behind the Milwaukee Bucks. So a lot of stuff went down during the regular season. I want to ask you guys, was there like a specific moment that kind of stood out for you that led you to believe that this might be our year? This might be the year that we finally win the NBA championship? I guess I should just keep saying names, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I'll go to Rayon first.
Now that I think of it, all of the like regular season kind of just like blends into one for me from like all the years. I can't really think of a moment from last year where I thought that we were gonna win it. But I mean, I'm pretty sure that 58-24 wasn't even our best record. We had a better one the year prior, I think. So nothing really stood out to me that we would win from the regular season. But I mean, obviously, even with Kawhi out, we were playing well, and yeah, I really couldn't pinpoint one exact moment. But later on, we made another trade, and then we bolstered up the team better, and we brought in Gasol, which I would say made our team obviously like a contender. And then from that point, I thought, you know what, maybe this could be our year. So I would say maybe that would be the moment. But other than that, I can't really think of anything.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking as well. Like, I think that Marc Gasol trade says a lot, especially if you're trading away a guy like JV and how much he meant to, the team that was, he started off a part of that team that went up against Brooklyn back when, Lowry and DeRozan were still, newbies here in Toronto, and they went take on the Nets in that 7-game series. So it's a tough trade. Tyler, what about you? Was that trade something that stood out to you, or was it a shot? Was it a player that they acquired? Anything that stands out to you?
I mean, I'm kind of with Rayan, where the regular season just starts to all melt together into one big long season these last couple years. I mean, whenever your team makes a big trade at the deadline, it always gives you some confidence going forward. And I think the Gasol trade was big. And like you said, shipping out JV for an older guy like Gasol was kind of them signaling like, we think we can do it this year. And that was obviously a big moment. I think guys, a couple games into the season, a month or two into the season, once you realize Van Vliet and Siakam were both becoming the players that they were going to be later in the season. I think those were two huge players for us, obviously, and getting good production from both of those guys was kind of what set us over the top, especially because they're both so young and there wasn't necessarily huge expectations for them, especially Van Vliet being undrafted. So I think those two guys, when they started to really blossom, was kind of like a signaling like, oh, we might actually be able to do something this year. So I would say kind of the trade, but then also those two guys were big factors in me starting to believe a little bit.
Let's move on to some playoff talk right now. Obviously, the Raptors did win in the end, but they started off somewhere. First round matchup against the Orlando Magic and Terrence Ross, the former Toronto Raptor, obviously. A lot of people were saying heading into this series, they expected the Raptors to take it in 4 games. Thought it was going to be a walk in the park against the Magic. What were your guys' thoughts? First round, Orlando. Were you guys expecting the sweep as well, or how did you think this series was going to go? Let's go to Tyler first.
I mean, it's always easy to write off a 6, 7, or 8th seed in the NBA playoffs because there's usually such a big gap there between the top teams and the bottom teams in the playoffs. But I mean, in professional sports, you can never really truly write off anybody. And I mean, that first game really, I think, probably did a lot of good for the Raptors to just kind of shock them into saying we really need to step our game up. Because after that first game, that the series didn't look like it was at all in question. Moving forward past that game, I didn't feel worried at all during any of the 4 games after that. So I think it really kind of got the Raptors back in gear. But I mean, I've heard a lot of good things about Orlando. They have a pretty exciting team there, some young guys, and they seem to play quick and have some good shooters there. So I mean, it definitely wasn't an easy opponent, but we after that first loss, we took pretty easy care of them, and I think it was just necessary for the players and the fans to know that we didn't have too much difficulty, and it was basically a sweep if you just take out that first game where we weren't in the zone. It was basically a sweep, so I think we showed what we could do against them.
It was a reverse sweep. I guess
Yeah.
That's what you can call it. Rayan, same question, but also Tyler mentioned that first game. It was a surprising loss. Were you panicking at all after that first game, or were you still pretty confident?
I'm not gonna lie. I was starting to panic because it was kind of a thing for the Raptors losing the first game, of the series, and it happened after that as well. But I mean, in that game, Kyle Lowry drops a nice 0 on the box score. So obviously he was getting a lot of criticism for that. And it was kind of disappointing. But obviously, like Tyler said, it's always good to have, your struggles like at the beginning so that you bounce back and then keep your focus for the rest of the playoffs. And I mean, yeah, after that first game and, like a last second DJ Augustin 3 is what finished the game off. That was kind of disappointing, but I mean, after
He's
that,
also a former Raptor.
yeah. I mean, honestly, looking at their squad, there really isn't that much to it. So at the beginning, I was expecting, it to be pretty simple, but after that game, that's what happened. 4 games right after that. Yeah, it's pretty good
Mm-hmm.
series.
I just wanted to add one thing that I kind of remembered my feelings about that first series. I don't think I watched much of that first series because my attitude going in was I'd been disappointed so many times before. I wasn't going to pay attention until they made it to the conference final. Okay. And then I was going to start to really pay attention. That was my expectations. If they were out before then I didn't want to watch them lose anyway. So, yeah, I mean, that first game was definitely kind of a shock, and I went, oh, well, I guess I'm not watching playoff basketball this year, but thankfully I was proven wrong. But yeah, I had higher expectations for them, so I'm glad they met them.
I think that's kind of what a lot of Raptors would be thinking too. Like, if you guys can't make it past Orlando, why would I bother watching the rest of the playoffs, right? But yeah, I mean, that first loss did surprise a lot of people, but the Raptors were able to bounce back and take the next 4 games of that series. Rayan mentioned that Kyle Lowry dropped 0 in the first game. Someone who did not drop 0 the rest of the series was Kawhi Leonard. He tore it up on the score sheet. 37 points in game 2, 34 in game 4, 30 in game 3 as well. So he was on fire that series, and he led them to the second round. And we all know how that second round went down. It was a pretty back and forth series. No team had won back-to-back games in that series, actually. Heading in, it's a tough opponent. You got Joel Embiid, Butler, Simmons, etc. They got a bunch of guys there. They added guys, obviously Butler at the deadline to help them out during that season. Heading into this series, how many games did you guys think this was going to go? Let's go to Rayan.
Yeah, like you said, the Sixers, they had a pretty nice, big 4, if you will. Butler, Simmons, Embiid, and I guess Harris, and you can throw Redick in there too if you want. So I definitely thought they're going to be a tough team. I saw this one going 6 or 7, and it could have gone either way, to be honest. Because they had a pretty good team, I would say. But thankfully it worked out in the end. But it was definitely a tough one to watch at times. We went down 2-1, I believe, in the series, and then it just went back and forth. But a lot of the time in this series, it was kind of Kawhi versus the Sixers. We were kind of getting carried, I would say, and not a lot of production from our other guys on the team. So yeah, but I definitely saw this one going long because there were 2 pretty evenly matched teams, and the Sixers were definitely strong.
Tyler, what were your thoughts on the series heading into it? Did you think that it was going to be a really big challenge for the Raptors?
I mean, yeah, I kind of anticipated it was going to be a tough series. The 76ers have a good team, and they're always a tough opponent. And there's my dad.
Shout out Rick.
Hey, Rick.
Yeah, so I mean, they're always a tough opponent, and they have a good, exciting group of players there. They're probably one of my least favorite teams in the league. I just don't particularly like any of their players. I don't really like Embiid, so him putting up a fat 0 against us in the regular season this past season was pretty nice to see. But I mean, yeah, it was. I knew it was going to be a long series, like Rayan was saying. I was expecting 6 or 7, and I mean, I probably would have rather have played Boston than them, to be honest. But I mean, it's always nice to put yourself up against a really tough team in the second round, so you know what you got, and what it's like to power through. So we knew we were going to get Milwaukee in the conference final, so it was nice to have a good test before against a good team. And I think really that shot in game 6 was the defining moment of the playoffs in many ways, and I think it really helped to put Toronto on the map with everyone. Everyone was talking about the Raptors after that shot.
You mean game 7? You mean the game 7 shot? Is that what you're talking about?
No, the Kawhi shot. That was game 6, wasn't it?
7.
That was game 7.
That went to game 7, really?
Yeah.
I always thought it was game 6.
Game 7.
Well, yeah, the game 7 Kawhi shot.
I mean, I'm sure he had a great shot in game 6 as well.
Yeah, but I mean, that shot definitely set the tone for the rest of the playoffs and got everyone talking about the Raptors, and made people think, oh, they're into the conference final now off all this momentum. It seems like one of the first times that Shaq and what's his name,
Barkley
were in on the Raptors side. I've never heard them scream that much before. So yeah, I mean, it was definitely good to see, and I think it gave us a lot of confidence.
Let's go back to the shot a little bit, because I think that deserves its kind of own section. Yeah, I mean, that was insane. Kawhi Leonard, game 7 shot, defended by Simmons. Is this the dagger? Where were you guys when this shot went down? And I guess what was the feeling? That crazy ending to the game. It was back and forth like the entire series, and you think it's going to go to overtime. I think Philly tied it, and then the Raptors got the ball, and there was I don't know how many seconds, maybe 4 or 5 seconds left on the clock when they inbounded the ball. You're thinking it's going to go to overtime, but you're just hoping for a miracle, I guess. And they get the miracle. So what happened? What was the feeling like watching that go in, that shot? Rayan, let's go. Where were you? What was going through your mind?
Yeah, I think I was watching this one at home with my family, and yeah, like you said, it was like a back and forth game up until that point, and I remember Jimmy Butler running down and putting a layup through and tying the game, and I'm thinking, oh God, this is bad. We're gonna lose it, because I think we were leading a little bit, and then they brought it back. So I said, oh no, this is not going to go well. And then there's 4 seconds left on the clock. Ball gets inbounded, and Siakam sets a nice screen. And then it's Kawhi and then Simmons, and then Embiid sort of tried to double team there also.
Yep.
And then, I don't know, after that it was kind of just in slow motion. Kawhi puts up the shot. He somehow got it up with enough height, and takes 4 bounces, I think it was, and it was like an end of a movie, like a sports movie, and the ball's bouncing, and then it finally goes in, and then you're just like, oh my God. And that was a crazy moment, probably one of the best sports moments I've seen in a really long time.
Yeah, that goes down in history. That goes not just down in Raptors history, but NBA history, playoff history. That's one of the best shots I've ever seen in my life. Mm-hmm. I guess Tyler probably has the same answer to that. It was just crazy. And then, the 4 bounces as well. And then it put them into the Eastern Conference Final. So I guess I'll ask Tyler this. The Raptors are going back to the Eastern Conference Final. They haven't had much success there in the past, losing to Cleveland. This time it's a new opponent. It's Milwaukee. What scared you the most about the Bucks?
For me, well, yeah, just back to the shot. Yeah, you said it best. I
Mm-hmm.
had the same reaction. It was like slow motion. It was I just remember being more shocked. I don't think I really yelled. I just kind of stared at the TV in
Yeah.
disbelief. But it was kind of like a uh-oh.
Oh no. Oh wow.
He knew it was coming.
Yeah, he knew. He called it. Oh no. Why? I don't get it. I thought he was gonna say like, "Uh-oh, this isn't good for Philly."
Yeah.
Then he freezes.
Yeah, so yeah, the conference finals was where they needed to get to again to give themselves a chance to overcome that hump. And for me, I think the thing that scared me the most about the Bucks was they were a lot like us in a way. I would say Antetokounmpo was kind of, he's a star obviously, but he's kind of the Kawhi star where he's a little bit low key. He's younger, so he's not established, I guess. But he's a great player, obviously, and I think just where we matched up was on our star and then also on our depth. I think both of us had a ton of depth at most positions. You could trust the bench for both teams almost as much as you could trust the starters. Like they had guys like Brogdon and Lopez and Bledsoe and Middleton, and the list just goes on and on for guys that could come in. And it seemed like every game it was a new person for them that was putting up points to complement Antetokounmpo. So yeah, I think the thing that scared me the most was just how similar they were to us and how well they could match up to us position to position.
Yeah, it was definitely going to be the hardest matchup for the Raptors so far. So many similarities between the two teams as well. They were the number 1 seed. Raptors were the number 2 seed. Raptors had a bit more experience than the Bucks in terms of playoffs and being there before, I guess. Raptors got off to a slow start in this one, though. They started the series off down 2-0. They lost both of the games in Milwaukee, heading back home. You know, the Raptors had so much momentum from that Kawhi shot, from the win against Philly, and I guess, you know, a little bit of momentum from Orlando still. But I think just the way that they won in Philly really gave them a little bit of a boost. But then when you lose the first 2 games of the Eastern Conference Final, some of that optimism probably leaves you a little bit. You're kind of like hesitant now, like, okay, is it going to be the same story again? Rayan, what was your feeling? Did you lose any hope? Did you think that, you know, you guys were just going to be watching, you know, the same thing on repeat, the Raptors choking in the Eastern Conference Final once again? Or did you still believe that this group could come back from being down 2-0?
Yeah, I mean, it's just the way like the first game started. We were leading for most of it, and then obviously somehow Brook Lopez turns into Steph Curry and just closes that game out.
The Nets coming back to haunt us.
Yeah, so that was pretty annoying. And then obviously we lose game 2. But for some reason, I felt like we could, you know, bring it back because obviously we'd been in this position before in the Eastern Conference Finals in 2016. We were down 2-0 to the Cavs, and we ended up getting 2 games back at home. Well, obviously we didn't win that series, but I still had confidence in our team. You know, because we did play pretty well, I would say, in game 1. It just ended. We didn't have that clutch factor at the end. So I wasn't particularly worried, but I knew that obviously the Bucks are a great team, and if they ended up sweeping us or beating us with 1 win on our side, I wouldn't have been too mad because they were a great team, and they still are, obviously. But yeah, I wasn't worried because I knew there's obviously there's still games to go, and it wasn't done, and that's what happened.
Yeah, I think that's what the players would be thinking too. You know, that series is still far from over. They took care of business on their home court. Now we got to take care of business at home in Toronto. And that's what they did. They won. They tied up the series 2-2. And then, the rest is history, I guess, in that series. They reverse swept arguably one of the best teams in the NBA that year, the Milwaukee Bucks. They won 4 in a row against them, finishing them off at home in 6 games to clinch the NBA final. And that's something that's never been done in Toronto Raptors history. They're going to the NBA finals. When you guys hear this, are you guys thinking of buying tickets for the NBA finals? Like, we don't know if this is going to ever happen again, right? We got Golden State coming to play game 1 in like a couple days. You guys thinking of buying tickets?
I wish. I think I heard the prices of it and kind of went, oh, I guess I won't be going. But I was definitely wanting to try to get downtown, even though I was up in Huntsville, trying to get downtown for a game. I was able to get there for game 5, maybe, I think. Game 4 or 5. Okay. It must have been 5 because it was the game that we could have won. So yeah, it would have been game 5. Unfortunately, we couldn't win it, but still being downtown for that was cool. Like all the different bars that were showing the game and just the atmosphere down there was great. But yeah, the tickets were definitely a reach if I was a millionaire maybe, but unfortunately not.
Let's talk about the matchup. They're playing the Golden State Warriors. Golden State obviously is looking for that three-peat after winning back-to-back NBA titles in the 2 previous seasons. I mean, I was pretty worried, to be honest. I didn't know if the Raptors had it. Like, Golden State's good. They might not be as healthy as they would have liked to been. But they're still Golden State. They still got a great coach, star player in Steph Curry. And they have the experience. They've been there before. They've taken down LeBron James, which is something the Raptors hadn't been able to do in the past. Raptors do have home court advantage, though. That was a big thing. I guess, yeah, what were your first thoughts on Golden State? Like, it's going to be a tough matchup. But I guess, yeah, what were your thoughts heading into the series? Did you think, like, it was going to be that 7-game series? Let's go to Rayan first.
I personally absolutely hate the Golden State Warriors.
Who doesn't?
Right there with you.
Yeah. I always have, still do. I'm happy they're not doing too well right now. But obviously, yeah, I think Durant was already injured at that point, but I mean, it's still Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. It's a really good team. There's Boogie Cousins too. So yeah, they were a really good team. So yeah, I was worried for this one. I didn't know if we were able to guard, that many players and be able to produce on the offensive end as well. So yeah, I was worried about that, but thankfully we got luck on our side, and they had key injuries in different games, which allowed us to take the advantage. But yeah, this was definitely a tough matchup for sure.
Tyler, what about you? What about Golden State made you worried, or did you feel like it didn't matter who the Raptors played? They were going to win no matter what. These guys were on such a high after coming off that series win against Milwaukee. Were you really confident that this was going to be the year that the Raptors were going to take the title?
I mean, I wanted to be, for sure. Like you said, you never know when your team will make it back to the finals. And I mean, I guess I was confident. My expectations were already met, I guess, them making it to the finals. So I went, hey, if they win, then that's just a bonus. But I mean, Golden State, obviously, they're one of the most hated teams to anyone who's not their fans. They're bandwagon fans, I should say. But I mean, it's just to me, Antetokounmpo's a star, but Curry's just on a different level. And there's something about today's NBA when your star is an amazing 3-point shooter that's really scary, just how centered the game is around the 3-point shot these days. And Antetokounmpo, you're not too worried about knocking down threes, but with Curry, he's clutch and he knocks down those threes consistently. But I mean, the one thing that did give me some hope for Golden State was we're definitely a deeper team. We were a deeper team than they were. Their bench, they have some character guys, but they're not necessarily the most productive guys off their bench. So I thought that we could take advantage of when Curry and Thompson and Green are off the court. And then, like Rayan said, Cousins was kind of an X factor. Thankfully, he didn't really show up, but he was always kind of in the back of my mind. Like, this is a former 25-point, 10-rebound guy. He had averaged across a couple seasons, so you never knew if he could just show up again. So thankfully for us, he didn't. And then, like Rayan said, a couple key injuries at the wrong time for Golden State, and we were able to capitalize on that. And yeah.
Yeah, like you said, the Raptors definitely had the depth. And, Golden State might have the stars, but sometimes you need that bench to come up clutch. And guys like Fred VanVleet, Serge Ibaka, he had a terrific NBA Finals, that guy. Especially in that clinching game. I think he put up I think it was like around 15 points in that game. VanVleet hit some big shots throughout the entire final round.
Some deep threes
over Curry. I remember he had a couple ones over him. So it was 1-1 in this series after the first two games in Toronto. Big win in game 1 to start. I remember the atmosphere being phenomenal there. First NBA Finals game outside of the States, so obviously the hype is real. And then they head to Golden State. And also, by the way, this is the final year in Oracle Arena for the Golden State Warriors as well. So there's a little bit more meaning to it, I guess, for them going back there and playing in front of their home fans there for, I guess, the final time, even though, they're still going to be their fans at their new stadium. So the Raptors, they kind of shocked the world when they went to Golden State, and they won. They won the next two games there, which is crazy. I never thought that they would be up 3-1 in their series against Golden State with a chance to head back to Toronto and win it. Did you guys think that this was ever going to happen? Did it kind of caught you guys off guard a little bit? Because to me, it seemed a little bit too easy, dare I say. It might have been a bit too easy. I just didn't think it was going to happen. I still thought that Golden State was going to find a way to come back, and this series was going to go 7. But what did you guys think at that point? It's 3-1. Like, we're a win away. We're a win away from winning. So what was going through your mind? Well, I'll go to Rayan first.
Yeah, 3-1 is obviously it's a good lead to have, but I mean, we've seen Golden State be a part of 3-1 leads on both ends. They win against down 3-1 against Oklahoma City, and they lose 3-1 up against the Cavaliers. So obviously, they're experienced in being able to come back, but also lose a 3-1 series. So we knew that it wasn't going to be easy to get that last win. And obviously, I think Game 5, KD's coming back, right? So I was kind of scared, like, oh no, they might bring it back from 3-1 down. So, but I mean, I was confident. I felt like we would have been able to get one, and we ended up doing that. So, yeah.
Tyler, Rayan kind of mentioned that KD injury as well. Obviously, the fans' reaction was quite something to Durant getting injured in Game 5. I guess what was your reaction to him getting injured? Because, I guess in some way you're happy that they lost their best player, and that might be your first thought. But the fans did get a lot of criticism for almost cheering, I guess, when he was walking off the court. I guess, what's your reaction to that? I don't want to hear your reaction to him getting hurt, but what's your reaction to the negative response that the fans got for what they did?
I mean, it just seems like Golden State, they just love to play the sad victim card when they're down 3-1 in a series. Like you hate to see people cheering for an injury, and you never want to cheer for an injury, but it's just when you're coming up a team that's never made the finals before in a city like Toronto that's had such bad luck with sports over the last few decades, coming up against a team where the Toronto Raptors are always the underdog in the NBA. No one talks about them. They're always the team from Canada. We always have this underdog complex with us, and then the best team in the league with all the stars comes in, and then the star gets injured. It's just a combination of a bunch of factors that lead to people cheering. And like I said, you never want to see it, but I do definitely understand the emotions in the moment that people have, and how big of a moment that was. Like that's what changed the series for us. They still managed to win Game 5, but with Durant going down, I think a lot of people went, there's no way the Raptors can blow this. So yeah, you don't like to see, you never want to cheer for another human being's injury, because they are human beings as much as we think they're pro athletes and celebrities. They're at the end of the day just human beings like us, and you never want to see someone else hurt. But I do definitely understand the emotions of a lot of the fans in the arena at the time, being a Toronto sports fan myself.
And yeah, KD, he was tearing it up too during the early portion of that game as well. Like, I was getting pretty scared. He was putting up so many points, possession after possession. So things weren't looking good at all for the Raptors in Game 5 to start it out. After he left the game, they kind of got a little bit back on their feet, and they made a game out of it. And it came down to that final possession once again. Not many seconds at all left on the clock. I remember Van Fleet passing it over to Lowry, and Lowry had that open look. And Lowry got his shot blocked. And imagine if that shot had gone in, right? Like wow, that would have been insane. Kyle Lowry hits the game-winning shot to give the Raptors their first ever NBA championship. But unfortunately, that was too good to be true. But unfortunately, they lost the game, and they're going to have to go back to Oracle Arena and try and close it out on the road, which is not what the Raptors wanted. They wanted to do it at home in front of their fans. But hey, you know what? A win is a win. So you got to do your business on the road as well. This Game 6 was crazy. The lead into this game was still about Kevin Durant not being in the lineup. If you guys remember, I think at the end of Game 5, during like the exit press conference, the GM of the Warriors had a very emotional speech or statement that he said about Kevin, saying that he would be shut down for the rest of the season. So it's definitely an unfortunate time for the Warriors, losing arguably their best player, I guess. And then they're wearing during warmups, I think they all had Kevin Durant T-shirts on. So that was kind of like their rallying cry heading into Game 6. They wanted to do it for Kevin. And that's a good thing. You have to gather around something when you're down in the series, and that was their motivation. They wanted to do it for Durant, but the Raptors, they still had their goal in mind, that they were going to finish business off on the road. And there was so many great things that happened in that game. I'll always remember just that weird ending to the game. It lasted like 5 minutes, or maybe more than 5 minutes, but I kind of knew that they won, but like it didn't officially end until like 5 minutes later.
Yeah, I was hoping you would bring that up. I wanted to talk about that.
Yeah, sure. What do you want to say in specific? Because like I was watching with Rayan once again, and like we didn't know when to celebrate. So like, when did you guys start celebrating?
I honestly didn't start celebrating because I was yelling at my TV over how frustrating. Like, I was just saying, of course, this is how it ends. When a
Yeah.
Toronto sports team finally wins, it's the worst ending to a final ever. They
Yeah.
let Draymond Green call a timeout when the Warriors have no
Didn't have
timeouts remaining. It
Mhm.
was just, to me, the icing on the cake for a series where the refs were totally against us the entire time, as they usually are. But maybe that's just, again, our underdog complex, but it just feels like all the time we get the worst calls against us. And just, it was the icing on the cake giving Golden State a timeout when they had no timeouts remaining. I've never seen that happen before. I've never seen a player call one when they're out of timeouts. I've never seen one being granted when they're given timeouts.
Yeah.
So like you said, it was just an agonizing, it felt like an hour of just standing there looking at replays, wondering, okay, it's over. They have 0.2 seconds on the clock. Nothing can happen here. But yet Curry still manages to get a shot up and make it at least somewhat interesting. It's not like it was an air ball. It definitely had a chance if that Kawhi shot went in back in the Philly series.
I think even if that went in, though, they still would have won. I think
I think it would have tied it.
Would it have tied? I feel like it was 4 points. I think it was a 4-point difference.
Maybe it was.
I think so.
It was so long ago, 364 days ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was 4 points.
4-point difference.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, I knew it was over at that point. Like, as soon as they inbounded the ball, like, there's not really much you can do. But yeah, it was just really weird. Like, it really should have ended, like when I guess Draymond motioned the timeout thing. Like, that should never have happened, and the Raptors should have just won right there. I think that's what the bench was thinking too, because they kind of started celebrating because they knew the Golden State Warriors did not have a timeout. I mean, that was just crazy how the Warriors got away with that, and they managed to still get a little bit more time back on the clock. But it did not matter. It did not matter. I remember listening to the mic'd up version of the game afterwards, and I remember that Raptors huddle before like it all ended, and they're all like game planning, like, if we get the ball, just throw it as high in the air as possible, and that's it. So they just had like a really specific game plan to do in those final couple of seconds. They weren't overthinking anything. They knew it was over. They knew they had it in the bag. And then finally when that Steph Curry shot missed and the buzzer went out, the Toronto Raptors were champions of the NBA for the first time in their franchise, and they would hoist the Larry O'Brien trophy. And I mean, that's a crazy feeling. I know, like, Rayan and I were pretty hyped up about that. The reaction was phenomenal. I can't really put it into words. It was crazy. Never thought that well, I guess I did think that it would happen eventually, but being from Toronto, I never thought that it would happen and feel like this, I guess. So I want to ask you guys, what it meant to you, watching the final few seconds of that game and hearing that horn go off, and what was the feeling like knowing that a team from your city, a team that you grew up watching, have been supporting your whole lives, finally achieves the goal. So how was that feeling? How was it, guys?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I didn't get to make it for the parade. I already took a half day off work so I could watch Game 5, so I couldn't really take another day off. But I mean, it was a great feeling. Like, I know Rayan and I both. Well, Rayan got me into the Raptors actually back in grade 8 was when I first started, which was that first season, like right when they made the Rudy Gay trade and actually started making the playoffs. Like right before that Rudy Gay trade was when I really got into the Raptors and started watching. So for me, it was just awesome looking back at where we started, the players we had, and like Lowry's always been my favorite Raptor, and just for him to still be here through all that time with all the changes we've seen as an organization was just crazy. And I was really happy to see him get to lift the trophy. And he just looked like he was so happy to have helped bring that to Toronto. And I was just, yeah, it was an awesome feeling to watch a Toronto team lift a major sports trophy. I mean, the MLS CFC winning was okay, cool, but the NBA, one of the major four sports, was definitely a lot more special.
Yeah. Rayan?
Yeah, I mean, same here. Obviously, we haven't had a major sport win Toronto in our lifetime, at least. So to see us win the NBA championship, that was pretty surreal. Obviously, been watching them for a while now, and they have a good group of guys, and it was just a likable team, and to see them win again, for me, it was pretty special because they beat Golden State, and I was pretty happy about that. But yeah, just seeing what it did, for the city, for the country, and getting some spotlight on us. We are a basketball team now. We used to be a hockey city, but now it's like a bit of both. So that was pretty cool to see.
Do you think that because the Raptors, won a major championship now, it does kind of show the rest of the league that, we aren't just some hockey fans. We aren't just some guys from Canada trying to make it, I guess, in the NBA, make it in the sports world. But we are actually here, and we're here to stay. And I think that's also kind of what we've built on now after winning the championship. We're just proving people wrong. We lost Kawhi in the offseason. And, we're still one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference, still trying to win back-to-back this year coming up. So do you think that, we've kind of proven to the rest of the league that, we're here to stay, and you guys should show us a bit more respect, I guess, in some way? I'll go to Rayan first.
I think it's a bit of both. We obviously won the championship, so our American friends down there, they started to notice us a bit, but I still don't think we've been given the respect we deserve. Like, now people are still counting us out. Like, I mean, we're the NBA champions. At least give us a shot, because we still have a good team, and we have a competent front office. So I think we should be given a little bit more respect out there. I think maybe if we keep performing at such a high level, we keep developing great players, and maybe attracting some big free agents, like, I don't know, Giannis maybe, and maybe we'll finally get that respect.
Tyler, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame that it took winning a championship for people to start talking more about the Raptors. I think people that really know basketball know that Raptors fans are some of the best in the league. Like, you heard LeBron a couple years ago when that game where they beat us in Toronto, finished the series out, you heard him kind of salute our fans, just saying how he loves coming to Toronto to play. So I think people who knew basketball knew that Toronto was a good basketball city. We have really good fans, and every game, even regular season, it fills up, and it's a great atmosphere all the time. But yeah, I mean, it's nice to force the American commentators down there to talk about the Raptors a bit more. But it's funny to see them still writing us off. Like, the start of the season, some people had us in 8th place, 6th place in the East. Like, it was crazy. It seems like they didn't watch Siakam. They didn't watch Van Vliet. It was inevitable that with more play time, with more touches, Siakam and Van Vliet were both going to perform even better than they did last season. So I never wrote us off this year. I definitely knew we were going to be competing near the top of the East again. Maybe not to the point that we were, maybe not that good, but hey, I'm glad to be proven wrong. But yeah, it was just nice to see us win, and us Americans having to talk about us and kind of solidify us as more of a basketball city. And I mean, I'll touch on Kawhi leaving. It kind of sucked, but I said kind of from the start, hey, if we win the championship, even if he leaves, I think we win that trade for sure.
Yeah.
And we won, and he left. So you can't be too mad at him. I don't hold a grudge. He gave us the championship, and it's hard to turn down LA, where he's from, where all his family's from, and playing with Paul George. It's a lot to turn down to stay up in Toronto through the winter when it's 3 feet of snow. So I don't blame him for it, and I'm just happy we were able to win, because if we didn't win and he left, I think a lot of people would have a bit of a more sour taste in their mouth. But I think a lot of fans just realize, hey, he gave us what we wanted, and we can't hold a grudge.
I think Kawhi would have that sour taste in his mouth as well if the Raptors hadn't won and he were to leave for LA as well. So I've always been saying that if they didn't win, there's a better chance that he would stay. If they'd won, then he's for sure gone. He knows that he can leave, and the Raptors fans will be respectful about it. And that's what we've been doing. We've been happy because we got the championship, because he led us. And it's fine that he left for LA. And honestly, we're doing good. We're still a great team, and we have a bright future. And Rayan mentioned Giannis. He's still out there. We can still get him.
I see the rumors all the time.
Yeah, I think that's next summer, right? If he's a free agent, so we can go out and get him. If Masai chooses to, I think he will. I think it's going to be up to Giannis whether he wants to come here or not. But yeah, I think winning this NBA championship really opened a lot of eyes of people down in the States. Seeing how passionate our fan base is. I think they already knew that we had a great team, but we just weren't able to get over that hump. And, I think Kawhi Leonard was the reason why we were able to do that. A guy that we haven't really touched on too much is Danny Green. He was also a part of that trade. I don't think we've mentioned his name at all, actually. But, yeah, he was a big piece as well, hitting those clutch threes, and that's what he's known for, right? Danny Money Green. And also the experience that they brought, both Kawhi and him, winning that championship in San Antonio. They brought that winning pedigree to the team. And then also adding Marc Gasol as well, that veteran presence in the locker room really helps with guys like Siakam and Van Fleet. So I guess, that's pretty much it for that Raptors season last year. Looking ahead to this upcoming playoffs, going to be starting in August or July 31st, I believe. We're going to be seeing some basketball. So I guess, the Raptors have basically the same team other than Green and Leonard. Terrific regular season again. Nick Nurse should be coach of the year. What are you guys' expectations for the Raptors? Do you think that they have a serious chance of repeating? That's been a topic that's been discussed a lot. Can this team win back-to-back? It's hard to do. We've seen Golden State do it. Can the Raptors do it? Tyler, go. I'm going to cut these out, I think. I'm going to just cut out me saying who speaks, and then you guys just start talking.
Hey, it's not that bad.
It's not that bad. Yeah, okay, whatever.
I mean, you'll have to cut this one out.
I'll see what works. I don't have to.
What, you'll just leave the unedited?
You never know.
Just do it in post.
Yeah. That's what editing means, right?
Yeah. All right, fine. I'm not an expert, right?
I'm leaving this in now.
What was your question? I completely forgot your question.
Do you think what are your expectations?
Oh, right. Yeah, I mean, we had a great regular season. Like I said, a lot of people had us written off at the start, but I definitely was one of those people. I figured we'd be near the top of the East. I think we're the favorite coming out of the East, to be honest. I think we know what we have to do to win. And I think we can get to those finals again. And then it's just a matter of who it's going to be. It'll probably come down to either Kawhi or LeBron that we play. Hopefully, whoever makes it there is worn out by the other one that they had to beat. And they come in a little bit tired and a little bit stressed out from the series before. Yeah, so it's just going to be a matter of can we beat the guy that led us to the finals, or can we beat the guy that swept us twice? It's a tough one either way. But yeah, we're gonna have to do it if we wanna repeat. And can we? I think we can put up a fight. I definitely don't think we'll get swept. It's just a matter of, can we get over the hump? I don't know if we can take 4 out of 7 from either of those teams. Just they're so stacked with, you got AD and LeBron, and then you got Paul George and Kawhi. It's and then Harris in LA too. It's yeah, it's definitely a daunting task, but I think we can take a couple games from them, and hey, if you win 1 or 2 in a row, then that changes the series, and you never know what might happen.
Guess we'll find out. Rayan, final thoughts. What do you think the Raptors are going to do come August?
I definitely think we have a shot to make it back to the conference finals. The finals, I don't know if we can make it. There are some pretty tough teams in the East this year. Obviously, the Bucks again. Celtics are looking pretty good. Heat maybe could be in there too. I definitely think we can make it to the conference finals, maybe even the finals. It's just the thing that's bugging me is that we don't really have like a superstar. I mean, Siakam is obviously amazing. I'd put him up there with, some of the best in the league. I just don't know yet if he can carry, the team. But because obviously they're going up now, it's an NBA it's like a duo league. They got LeBron, AD, Paul George, Kawhi. Can he do it on his own? Who would be the secondary guy here? I don't really know if we match up on that level. But I mean, if our coaching experience is great, we have obviously playoff experience for pretty much all of our guys, aside for a few new pieces this year. It's a possibility we could go back to back. It just, we need to have a bit of luck and things going our way, and maybe we could be there. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's a good way to put it. The Raptors, they have a good team, they just don't have that star, and I mean it's a toss-up. I think it's going to be tough going through the team like the Bucks again, Philly, Boston, or also teams from the West. Like there's some really good teams there. So it's going to be interesting. I don't really have a prediction. I think, I've also been saying Eastern Conference Final. I said that, to start the season, I think they could get to the Eastern Conference Finals again. I think now with this new playoff format, I don't really have a prediction just because, it's just so different, right? And, the circumstances that they're going to be playing under. I don't know. It's just going to be interesting to see what happens. It's definitely going to be something to adjust to for all of the NBA teams. But I think the Raptors could do it. I think that they could win. But who knows? I guess we'll find out, right? So that really wraps up our episode. I want to thank you guys for coming on. Tyler Moore, Rayan, Yussef. You guys got any final remarks that you want to say? Anything you want to shout out before going here? Let's go to Tyler first.
Oh boy. I don't know. Thank you for having me on. It's always nice to talk sports, and it's always, I guess, we have to kind of look back on the past these days with no sports happening in the present. But yeah, it's nice to reminisce about the Raptors season, and yeah, shout out Raptors, I guess.
Rayan, Yussef.
I don't really have anything to shout out, but just want to say thanks for bringing me on. It's fun talking about last season. We got to experience that for the first time. And yeah, obviously we don't have sports right now, but yeah, it was great coming on and talking about Raptors.
Yeah, it was a pleasure having you guys on, and we got to do it again.
For sure.
Follow @UnlimitedPod on Instagram and Twitter if you haven't already. We're also available on Spotify, YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, go over to Spotify and watch it if you want. Same with the Spotify people. If you want to go watch it on YouTube, go watch it on YouTube. We got that visual aspect as well. And yeah, that's it. I think I got another episode coming next week. But yeah, that does it for our Toronto Raptors 1-year championship anniversary special. So that's it. Thank you guys for coming on again, and see you later.